or the gender with which you identify. You are welcome here regardless of who you love, who you vote for, the regrets that burden you, or the mistakes you have made. In this safe community, we support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. Here, we review the words of the great teachers such as Jesus, the Buddha, and Confucius. It is, however, the task of every UU to be their own Buddha, their own Jesus, their own Confucius. It is a cornerstone of our religion that, even though we do not always have control over the events of our lives, we each of us is the author of our own life experience, and through the practice of loving kindness, we can heal our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and our planet. It is our work as a community to walk with each other along the spiritual pathways that lead toward happiness, compassion, and life fully lived. And while we are a safe harbor where there is solace and healing, we are also a launching pad from which we are propelled into the tumult of life to live courageously, justly, and lovingly. In this sacred place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captives free, and heal the brokenhearted. We have learned that to be fully human is to be fully divine, and that, with a little help from our friends, we can each tell our own unique story.
Thank you, Linda. That was perfect. Thank you, Linda. That was great. Today we're going to talk about creating fields of loving kindness as a way to find healing for ourselves, our society, and our planet. I just want to warn you that before I start that after I read the sermon, and even after reading it several times, it still felt a little weird to me. So hopefully it won't seem too weird to you. We're going to give it a try anyway. So also next week is blessing the animals. So how many people have an animal they'd like to bring? Okay, yeah, and you can also bring a picture of an animal if you have a couple Clydesdales in your living room. We may want to just take a picture, or if you have a dead pet, a pet that's passed away, and want to bring a picture of that pet, that would be great if you could do that. Also, it's with some sadness that we say that Dennis and Ellen are leaving us to go to a more watery place, Florida, so where there's sun. So, but they'll be back. This is just their last Sunday for now. So, but they'll be back in the spring. Okay, so Beth, would you like to welcome the people on Zoom, please?
We want to welcome Charlene Thomas and Lynn Leeson. You're welcome.
Welcome. Okay. Are there any announcements that we should be made aware of that are not on the back of the bulletin, or that we want to accentuate? We have Leanne standing here.
Okay, it's Raffle Sunday, so bring your dollars. We have a really cool mug that has a lid, so it's the time of year for a nice hot cup of tea with this beautiful Lennox bowl that Vanessa donated. And this is from the Feldman, so bring your dollars and get lucky.
Okay. We kind of feel we're lucky just to be here, Leanne. Thank you. No, I feel lucky just to be here, that's for sure. So, Let's now ask Gretchen Ohmann if she'd come forward and light our chalice for us.
I bring words this morning from another great teacher, UU minister, priestess, and chaplain, the Reverend Ann Keeler Evans. Welcome to the dark of the moon, to the softness of shadows, to the time of the ancestors, to the season of looking within, to a period exploring the tender places that need healing, need forgiveness, need permission to become your most beautiful possibilities. We yearn for those November rains which erase signs of life's wear and tear. Let us rest for a while in this place in between, then let us pass and receive peace.
Excellent. Thank you, Gretchen. That was beautiful. And now Julie Williams is going to read a poem for us.
This was in the New York Times many years ago. Autumn's leftovers. Rural and suburban householders are busy now with rake and fork and barrow, cleaning and neatening the dooryard, the lawn, and the garden. Everything must be ready in order for winter. But down the road and across the valley, where autumn itself is in charge, nobody is bothering about the unkept look. Nature isn't very neat about such matters. Fallen leaves, restless as sparrows, rustle and scurry at the roadsides. Gray heads of golden fluff spill seeds on every passing wind. Milkweed pods send streams of silken shimmer in all directions. Wild grapevines and woodbine have been left dangling from trees and bushes, nooses for unwary feet. Ripe grass is sadly in need of comb and brush, but nature doesn't seem to care. The floor of the woodland is littered with dead twigs and branches pruned by wind and rain. Fern fronds lie sere and brown. Box elders emphasize their nakedness with tufts of keys that will dangle all winter. The abandoned oriole's nest has begun to fray at a high limber tip of the wineglass elm. Windows of tan needles prove that pines too shed foliage in the autumn. Man must rake and cart away to soothe his conscience and prove his tenancy. Nature doesn't bother. The tree thrives on its own trash and the seed sprouts in its parents' midden heap. Each new spring grows on autumn's leftovers.
Very nice. Yes, Julie, a little reminder that we all spring from the middens in a sense. So, well, will not be a sermon topic. So, okay. So let's read our affirmation together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Okay, so now is the time we have for joys and concerns. It's our practice to let the young ones come up first if they have a joy or a concern. Mikey and Paula have asked to distribute the plates today. So let's read our opening words and our offering words. I did not quite yet. That's okay, you'll have to do it by yourself. Okay. This fellowship is a community of ourselves Its resources are our resources. Its wealth is what we share. As we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it. Okay, wow, that was a pretty good lesson. Thank you. There's a story about the Buddha that's very close to that I especially like. The Buddha was teaching one day when that surly guy in the back came forward and spit in his face, and the Buddha wiped his face off and said, "Thank you. I'd wondered if I could still become angry." So apparently the Buddha could. So okay. So today we're going to my message is a little different, and part of it is we're going to ask people to come up after much of it during a part of it to share what they can do to create fields of loving kindness. What is it possible to do for us? So the title of my sermon today is "One Simple but Kind of Hard and a Little Bit Surprising Thing You Can Do to Save Yourself, the Planet, and maybe even your relationship with your crazy Uncle Bob." I want to assure you before I begin that I am not on any kind of psychedelic drugs. How many people here have a difficult kind of Uncle Bob kind of figure in their life? Many, somebody who is so far, sees life so differently from you that it just doesn't seem possible to communicate. Well, Jesus had a curious saying: "Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." What could Jesus have possibly meant by this? Well, there have been a lot of speculation over the last 2,000 years. But for my money, I think it means that what we do, how we think, and how we act has transcending and permanent significance. In other words, what we do matters and may have meaning far beyond our own particular location in time and space. Strangely, there is some science that points in that direction. So let's follow the science. And Nico, would you play the video? This is something you're either all familiar with, but it's a good thing to look at. Just a video of a magnet and the force field that it's created, and see how the iron filings are shaped in that magnet. Now, one thing that's interesting about it, if you look carefully, you'll see that the field is not just a one-dimensional or two-dimensional kind of field, rather, but it's three-dimensional. That there are the field does fill space. So very interesting how that happens. Okay, thank you, Nico. Yeah, thank you, Nico. Okay, so what did we just see? Iron filings falling into order in response to an invisible magnetic field. We can't see the field, but we can see its influence. The interesting thing to me is that the iron filings we saw in the video, and all matter, as far as we know, is composed of cooperative electromagnetic fields that hold particles in place, like the electrons, protons, and neutrons of an atom. When, however, we put these things like protons and neutrons into a particle accelerator and break them up to see what these very small particles themselves are composed of, we see that they are made of just more fields. The more particles we break up, the more fields we get. There doesn't appear to be any matter in matter at all. And interestingly, that is still one of the big questions in science. Just what is matter anyway? Everything that exists seems to be composed of fields operating within fields, operating within fields. This brings to mind an old story about an Indian holy man and a British army officer. The Brit and the holy man were discussing metaphysics when the holy man made the statement that the world rests on the back of an elephant. The Brit then asked, well, what does the elephant stand on? The guru replies, that elephant stands on the back of another elephant. Confused but curious, the British officer asks, and what's underneath that elephant? The guru smiles and replies, it's elephants all the way down. That the universe is resting on the back of an elephant seems to our ears to be a bit weird, but it is no less weird than the scientific reality that it's fields all the way down, layers of invisible forces holding everything in intricate balance, woven together to form the basis of our universe and make up the framework of everything from galaxies to garden ants. Some biologists have expanded on this idea to consider that we may also live in biological fields. How many remember that scene from one of the Star Wars movies when Yoda says that that the Force is just the creation of all living things. Remember that when they raised the X-wing fighter out of the swamp? This field theory of biology could help explain the simultaneous independent invention of the airplane, the telephone, the polio vaccine, and calculus for our species, and a similar phenomenon in other species who pick up the same habits in different locations without contact with one another, sometimes from other continents. For instance, rats learning to run a maze faster because rats in another location have already learned the same maze, a phenomenon first observed in the 1920s by William McDougall, and ants. There are literally hundreds of location and task-specific behaviors required of ants in a colony of 200,000 individuals. Yet ants do not possess anything like a central nervous system that can process those kinds of complex instructions. How do they know how to be ants? Could they be operating on an informational biological field? This also seems true of termites and bees. And could a biological field theory also be true for some species of birds and fish moving in what appears to be a demonstration of synchronized swimming and flying? How many of you have observed a large flocks of starlings flying in that strange and beautiful ballet of the wing that they do? How many have seen that? Okay, how many how many people know what that's called? Does anyone know what it's called? Yeah. Do you? A murmuration. Okay. Well, Pat, would you like to sit up front? You can. So, yes. That is very. I discovered that in the preparation or the research for my sermon, and then right now you're probably saying something like, "Wow, Jim actually researches his sermons." So, okay, now things get a little weirder. There is a field study in physics called black hole thermodynamics. It was championed by the late Stephen Hawking. An important element of that theory is that all information will eventually be stored on the event horizon of black holes. I'm not making this up. If all information is stored on the event horizon of black holes, could there be a quality of timelessness or of the infinite to the biological fields we create? Which brings us back to the teachings of Jesus. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. And that brings us to a surprising but simple insight. If we are field makers that shape and hold reality in place, and if we really want to make a difference for ourselves, for our society, for the planet, and possibly even for our great-great-grandchildren, we should strive to practice kindness, passion, compassion, and patience. In doing so, we create a field of connection and care, one that may last far beyond our own lives. When we choose kindness or cruelty or generosity over greed, kindness over cruelty or generosity over greed, we may be weaving a kind of eternal tapestry, one that will stay alive in the world long after we are gone. Now, this brings us to my creed, the Uncle Bob. First, I want to repent of my use of the word crazy, and I want to say that I did not have an Uncle Bob. my Uncle Bob was my Uncle Stanley, and he was a really interesting person. I had many discussions with him over the years before he died. My Uncle Stanley was unique. He supported the John Birch Society and was always finding communists lurking in local and federal governments. He had a pile of gold in a 5-gallon pail in his bedroom closet. He lived alone and was a committed bachelor. He always slept with a shotgun leaning against his nightstand or propped up near his lazy boy recliner. He lived in a little rundown house on a little rundown ranch in western North Dakota. I only saw him on the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Christmas, weddings, and funerals. I and my cousins were pretty sure that he wore the same plaid bell-bottom pants held up by the same red suspenders for at least 10 years in a row to our family gatherings. But Uncle Stanley feared the red Chinese communist menace that he was sure was coming to overthrow the U.S. government and put all white people in labor camps. For reasons that were never clear to me, he wrote in Dwight D. Eisenhower's name on his presidential ballots until 1972, several years after Eisenhower had died. Now you get the picture. Mike Stanley was a very interesting person. I wish I had learned to appreciate him. If I knew then what I know now, which is that pretty much all people have a gift to give into the world, I would have been far less argumentative and much more attentive to what was lurking behind all his unusual ideas. Had I actively created a field of compassion and understanding with Stanley, imagine what could have been born from our relationship. If I had been able to see him through the lens of our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of all persons, what treasures of his soul might he have shared with me? My hope is that if the fields we create do somehow transcend time and space, that maybe there is healing between us after all, even though Stanley has been dead for over 30 years. So what I'm going to ask you to do now, and I know this seems pretty weird, but I just ask you to join in the witness with me and imagine one thing in your life that you can do to help create transcending fields of loving kindness. And I'm just going to open the mic. The mic is open right there in front of Harvey. So if anyone would like to come forward and share what one thing they would like to do, we have.
Can I share?
Okay, there we go. So it says here, share things they can do to create a field of loving kindness. That's a really large task for me. So I just try to start with a spot. And the spot that I try to start with is in my relations with anybody I meet during the course of my day. My objective is no matter what kind of a situation I'm coming from, I try to be cognizant of their situation and make their day better. And that relates to somebody at the checkout stand, at a grocery. It can relate to a client on the phone. The idea, though, I always kind of keep in mind is something from a movie where there was a song called Singing in the Rain, and the song went, make them laugh. If you can't make them laugh, make them smile.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else? Yeah, let's give a round of applause. That was a pretty good answer.
Just going to confess that Jim asked me yesterday to get the ball rolling. So I had time to think about it. And it's so interesting. I really believe in like big ideas, cool ideas ever since I was young. Just, I want to start an organization. I want to lead a movement. But I quickly realized that was never going to be me. But I always got involved with volunteering, and I realized this was the thing throughout my life. Since I was a child, I volunteered. Like my friend and I started this whole campaign to collect the Campbell's soup cans, not the cans, the labels in the 60s so you could get money for your school. We got the newspaper for that. So when I got in the newspaper, that kind of set the thing rolling. Then the next thing was getting involved with the campaign to save baby seals from being clubbed to death. Does anyone remember that? If you're young and you don't know about that, it's the craziest thing. People like baby fur, baby seal fur, so they would club them to death to get the fur. Yes, it's white, and then they had to club them so they didn't ruin the fur. Anyway, I got really involved in that, and I was just like, I was in middle school, and I just realized that it helped me to feel like I was doing something. And I just kept volunteering in different ways. And when I was in college, I started getting involved with the nuclear freeze. Remember that? That didn't work out. But we tried hard. And then I got involved with a governor campaign for Jerry Springer, governor for Ohio, which fell apart when he was caught writing checks to prostitutes, which my friends didn't let me forget for about 10 years. Anyway, but then I got involved. The main thing that I got involved with that really changed my life and my way of thinking about the world was I decided to volunteer with what we called a battered women's shelter. This whole speech is all about how old I am, frankly. It was called Battered Women, and I got involved with that. And I was a college student, and it just changed my whole view on everything because I met people I never, ever would have met in my life. I found out about traumatic things that were happening in people's lives that I kind of vaguely knew about but didn't know for real. It changed me dramatically as a person, and I realized that to me, my volunteering has always been a thing from then on, which I still do, like things I think of as grand, try to participate in grand things, like I'm working on campaign stuff right now. But the thing that makes the most difference to me is one-on-one contact with other humans and what can pass back and forth between us. And like right now, my favorite thing, as you know, I mention it an annoying amount, that I go with my therapy dog to the hospital. But I can't tell you how meaningful it is. That's why I bring it up all the time. And I go, and we'd go to the oncology ward and the pediatrics ward, and Vicki here hooked me up with a hospice that she works with. And the interactions that happen are just really profound, profoundly changing to me, and I hope just a little tiny, drop in the pond of kindness that spreads and can maybe have some meaning. So that's my story.
Excellent. Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to share? Leanne.
So I think playing games and getting together is a way of creating community. And I think our euchre group that we get together every week, comes and goes. It's very amorphous. But there's a place you can go every week to play cards, and that's fun, and just hang out and have fun.
Can I share?
Thank you, Leanne.
To be a good listener, I think it's very important to be a good listener, to be aware of what's going on in the world around you, and to let other people know that listening, instead of you saying, oh yeah, I know about that too, and blah, 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 to let that person tell everything that they know and just be there for them. And I think that is so important. We have a habit of saying, oh yeah, well, I remember when this happened to me. Well, they don't want to hear what you have to say because it's so important for them to be talking about themselves. So good listening is extremely important.
Amen to that, Gloria. Julia.
You inspired me because of I'm relating to the energy field thing, right? Because there was an extraordinary minister at Unity Temple where I used to go some years ago, and she led us in this phenomenal congregational meditation on loving kindness that was so powerful. It just blew me away. And I do it by myself. And actually, I'd love to lead everyone some of the time because but simply put, it's simply metta. And my shorthand version is just, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be loved, may I live in peace. And then you extend that out, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be loved, may you live in peace, to the congregation, to your town, to your state, to your country, to the world, all the way out to the universe, to the ends of the universe. And then you bring it back in reverse. So you're sort of bringing the power and energy of the universe and all the love that's out there back into your community and your congregation and yourself. And of course, all the active things are really important. But for me, I needed something like a prayer right now. And that feels really good.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Beth. Very nice. And I might say it's hard to create fields of loving kindness in this political climate. I know I have friends and family that I just say, well, you're doing what? You think what? Yeah, like, but it's you know, that thing is, if we don't work on the loving kindness thing, that we fall back into that hatred and anger thing. So Julie. Okay.
I looked at my phone, so there's still a few minutes. A few years ago, it might have been during COVID, I called the vet to make an appointment for one of my cats. I used to have two. And we got it all set up at the time. And then I said, oh, that won't work. And could we change it? And she said, you're so kind. I was the one, you know, they were busy. I was the one who was making the change. And I don't know whether she said, you know, people have been so angry. I don't remember exactly, but I just, you know, just even, anyway, just made me think about that. I wasn't doing anything special.
Yeah. Except being yourself, Julie. Thank you. Is it, Deej. Oh, and Deej first, then Charlene.
I don't know if it's because the way I was raised, but I think you have to be like a sonar. I think you have to be out there looking and be very aware of people who do need some help. If they fell down, I've seen people sitting in a window watching a kid. Oh, I like to show my love and concern by helping that person. I don't care how little or how big. And guess who feels really good about it? Me.
There is that. Those fields of loving kindness, they are strongest within ourselves. And Charlene.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can you pick up the volume on Charlene? Charlene, hang on. We're getting the volume up there.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. Hear you very well.
Okay. Years ago, I was in a workshop and they challenged us to every day for a month, and as long as you wanted to do an anonymous act of kindness. And it was so much fun to think of things you could do that no one could ever thank you for. And like something as simple as paying the person's bill that's behind you in the Starbucks line. They can't thank you. They'll probably never see you again, but maybe they think, oh, there are some nice people in the world.
Thank you, Charlene. Is there anyone else? Celia?
Okay, well, I have the grocery store practice too. I'm friends with all the people at the supermarket that I go to now. I've been working on the guy that gets the carts that's kind of handicapped, and finally he's my friend. So that's nice. But the other one I've had for years and years is to help parents with little kids that are not acting out at the cash register or can't quit asking for candy. One is by saying it's really hard to stand in 2 walls of candy and not want it, because the grocery store puts the candy at the counter and the parents have their kids here, and instead of bringing the kids out in front of them, they're right there. All they can see is candy, so of course they want it. Or make faces at them. Or my favorite one was one year I was in a store in Denver, and it was a Whole Foods store, and this mother was there trying to get her little girl to put on a raincoat before she went outside. She had a very cute raincoat that was shiny and had big polka dots on it and stuff, and she was, and I'm not doing that, and going around. She had a little cart there, and I went, oh, look at that look at that coat. I want a coat like that. Oh my goodness, I love that coat. I looked at her mother and I said, could I get a coat like that? And the little girl just took the coat and she put it on. And nope, I was not going to get her coat. She was keeping her coat. So anyway, it's fun for me because you have to be creative because every situation is different. So it's actually probably more fun for me than it is for the parents.
Thank you, Celia. Lori?
I know I already spoke, but Celia, you just really put me in mind of how when my son was a baby, he was kind of a nightmare. And we flew with him to California, which was a nightmare. And he was just making the biggest fuss the whole time. And people were just giving me dirty looks. And I was trying to walk up and down the aisle, and they were just sitting with their legs sticking out and not letting me walk by and just being such jerks. And I hated the whole world, including my son, for a few minutes. And then some lady at the end of the flight, just some random person just said, "Miss?" And I was like, "What?" And she's like, "You're just a really good mother." And I'm like, gotta tell you, I remember that my whole life. I mean, he's 27 now, and that has made a difference in how I interact with other people in those situations when I see little acting out kids and stuff. It was like, so.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori. Don?
When I was a kid, I was in the hospital one time. I had fallen while I was roller skating, knocked myself out. But I was in this wheelchair. I got over to the door, and I was looking down the hall, and there was a little girl. I think she was a Native American. And she was all by herself down there. And when I was a kid, I had a lot of joy, a lot of happiness that I felt. And I just, I don't know, could feel her sadness or her aloneness. And so I just, like, within myself, got that happiness going. And I was just looking at her and sending that to her. And I did that for a while. And all of a sudden she started laughing. And the nurses said, "How did you do that?"
Wow. Very good. Thank you, Don. Are there others? You guys are reminding me of, come on, Lynn.
Much shorter. So I'm sitting here listening to us talking about fields of loving kindness and watching Harvey do that every single time. And I just thought it might be nice to acknowledge our own community and the way that folks like Harvey will go that extra mile, and Nico running our Zoom and do tiny little things that we even start to forget about. You know, you don't even notice it's happening because it's just part of the field of kindness that we've created for each other. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. Well said, Liz. Lynn, thank you. Are there others that would like to share? If not, I do have something was put on my pulpit here. I create field of loving kindness by attending BUUF every Sunday and by listening very intently to Jim's fascinating sermons. Wait a minute, that's in my handwriting, so you can forget that. Okay, that was wonderful. And Gretchen, if you would extinguish our chalice.
I bring words from UU priestess Molly Reamer. She says, allow yourself to soften into this season of stillness. Resist the urge to scurry. Stretch your fingers out to your own life. See what you notice when you give yourself time. Quiet now. Let drifts of dreams appear through the mist on the horizon. Greet yourself arriving at the crossroads. Lean in, reach out. Listen. Here you are.
That was great, Gretchen. Thank you.